Welcome to the KOMO Sports End Zone podcast with KOMO Sports Director Niko and Najee Moye.
Welcome to the KOMO Sports End Zone podcast. I'm Niko alongside Najee Moye. Najee.
Niko.
4 in a row.
How about that?
Right?
We've gone, the Seahawks, the Seahawks have gone on winning streaks this year. We've seen that. We've seen losing streaks this year. However, they've looked quite impressive in the recent month.
Well, I think that what we've talked about on this show, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but it's truly and genuinely this thing coming together. Now, we've seen the defense come together. That's obvious to anybody who watches the game. But I think as we get a larger sample size since the bye week, which is really when this thing turned around, you start to see maybe the intricacies as to why this is working. Mike McDonald has alluded to the coaching staff coming together, getting more familiar with each other. Ernest Jones coming aboard.
Oh, yeah.
We've talked about that at length, and I think that it's like the perfect storm. Coby Bryant, we'll hear from him later in this show, having an awesome run. I think that it's a perfect storm of things coming together.
Yeah, I definitely think that the defense has, even early in the season, the defense showed a lot of bright spots. One thing I noticed is from the beginning is this team tackles well. They stop people in their tracks. But when you add in things like scheming directly for the opponent to take away their best weakness, like Kyler Murray running around like crazy, he didn't do that. He actually didn't play well at all because of the defensive front four, which is we've talked about in episodes past, if you've been listening to us for a while, how especially last season the front four were just kind of not there, and with the addition of Big Cat and more coaching and just more health on the front four and the linebacking core, we've seen that this defense has been flying around. Actually, and you mentioned Ernest Jones turning to a leader on this defense.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah.
I think the pick we saw against the Cardinals was great, and it was just another play. This defense continues to force turnovers. We didn't get a touchdown. It's almost like we were spoiled with all the touchdowns the last few weeks on defense.
Right.
But it's something that going forward into this next game is going to be huge, no question about it. And another thing, before we get into that, is the running game figured out. Now, Kenneth Walker III missed that game, but yet Zach Charbonnet still had 134 on the ground, another 59 receiving. Even Kenny McIntosh had 35 yards. So it's one of those things where I think, listen, if K9's playing in that game, he has a big game too. That's not knocking Zach at all.
But Zach is a great talent.
No question about it.
We've known that
I think
for a while.
It was the perfect, you hope this is the start of something. Much like when they beat the Niners back a month ago, and you were saying okay, we hope this is the start of something with this defense, and it most clearly was. Now we hope that what we saw with this run game against Arizona is the start of something, and certainly we're going to find out when they take on the Packers. What's your take on that, Nash?
With the run game, look, it's winning football games. It's not easy, but there are two things that you can do to almost guarantee that you will come out with a pretty good outcome in this game. Not turn the ball over, and Geno Smith did not turn the ball over last week, and run the ball and play good defense. That was actually three things. But this Seahawks team, I was looking at the numbers, they're actually in the bottom fifth of the league in rushing, and I've always said from the beginning of the year, if you can just make sure that you can move the ball on the ground and keep the ball from being in danger of throwing the ball 45 times, it's not exactly how you win the game. Or not exactly how you keep from losing the game. Just keep the ball in safe hands. And honestly, we got running backs that can do it. We've got an offensive line that's getting healthier as the year goes on. And, they're cooking right now, Niko.
Yeah, no question about that. And listen, that's our take. I want to bring in a special guest here. We're going to tilt Najee's camera over just a little bit. Paul Kahnke has shot more Seahawks games than anybody I can think of.
Thank you.
Paul, what are you seeing from this team? And what, given you've been shooting these games for about 15 years, what do you see from this team that maybe could be the key for them, that maybe makes them special? Now, special can be a relative word, but what do you see from these guys?
Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me on. This is a really big deal for me. You guys are really moving up in the world. You guys validated my parking. That was a really big deal. I was like, these guys are getting more legit every day, so I really, really appreciate that. But back to your question. I think 4 in a row is impressive, but the Packers are very, very impressive. They went into Detroit, and it was a very, very close game, and that's a very formidable division that they're in. So it's always interesting when you take the best of each division and see how well they match up against each other, because that's obviously what happens in the playoffs. So I'm very intrigued by the matchup. I'm sure you guys are too. Everyone is. So, and it's prime time, and But I think Green Bay is probably looking to scratch a little bit of that itch from that Detroit loss, and I think they want to see if they can go into a place like this, a very hostile environment, and see if they can come out with a victory.
Paul, give me 2 moments that stand out in your career of shooting Seahawks games. I know one of them, but I want to know. So I know the obvious, and we're going to get that out. I'm going to let you say it, but then I want to hear a second one.
I mean, the first one, it's definitely the NFC Championship game against the Niners back in January of 2014 of the 2013 season. That was and I don't want to date myself too much. That was kind of the Ali Frazier 3. That was that thriller in Manila. You know, they played each other twice in the year. They'd split both meetings, and that was the third one. It was the tiebreaker. And
nice reference.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I know people are probably Googling Ali Frazier 3. What is that? Anyhow, I think what's interesting, I remember leading up to that game, I think they were going to play either the Panthers or the Niners. And somebody like, I think we want to play the Panthers. I'm like, no, you want to play the Niners. That's the game. That's the team you hate the most. You want to play them, I would think. And that's obviously what came to pass. And and people have talked about it, obviously, years later as, you know, one of those just great slobber knocker NFL games with an incredible finish. And it's really cool to look back on my footage from that game, my memories from that game, obviously. The joy of a whole town celebrating the fact that they get to go to a Super Bowl. And obviously everybody knows the result of the Super Bowl. It was almost anticlimactic compared to that game. That felt like the championship in that regard for a lot of people compared to what the Super Bowl was. So that's one of them. I think it's hard not to go back to the Fail Mary from 2012.
Oh, sure.
I was about 15.
Who they play in that game?
They were playing the Packers.
Yeah,
different quarterback, different coach, but yes.
Sure.
They were. I was about 15 feet away from that play when it happened.
Nice.
And but just the pure chaos of everything, and it was that place, Lumen Field, CenturyLink Field, Quest Field, whatever it's been called over the years. It's got a weird aura there. It's like if you go to a haunted mansion. You know, things have happened there. People are like, oh, we were there, we witnessed it. Yeah, we saw it on TV, but it's like when you're there in person, there's just a little bit of a different feel to it. So, will that happen again on Sunday? Maybe. There's almost a guarantee. If you go to enough games there, you're going to see something you've never seen before, and you're going to be talking about it 5 to 10 years later, if not longer. So
I love it, Paul. I don't want to keep you from that beautiful family and kiddos any longer, but we love you. Thanks for coming on for a few minutes.
Niko,
I want you to be a recurring guest appearance.
We'll see, if my schedule allows for it.
I love it.
Niko, thank you for having me. Najee, thank you for having me. You guys, appreciate it. And I'm going to toss this
We're
back
going to swing this right back over to Najee. Yeah, no question about it. And I'm going to – there's Najee.
We always like to validate parking on the show, you guys.
Yeah, well, of course we're going to validate parking.
Yes, we always like to validate.
Paul brought up something that I think really does apply to this game, not just because the Fail Mary of all those years ago was the Seahawks and Packers, but there is an aura there. And we have all three of us, including Paulie. Now, Paul more than us, but hey, we've been on that field. We've seen these games, and we've seen what can happen there. Now, let's juxtapose that with the situation of this team right now, which is, 4 games to go.
Right.
1 game lead on the division. Something's got to give here. This is a wildly impactful stretch. 2 of these last 4 at home. The next 2, Green Bay and, of course, Minnesota.
Tough games.
Boy, oh boy. Yes, tough games.
Tough games.
And that aura, that energy, that X factor, that could be huge in this whole thing. Like, how do you break that down? I'm not sure. But in a game that, listen, this one with the Packers, we're expecting to go down to the wire. Minnesota 11-2. Whew, you know what I'm saying? Like, it may come down to these things, and the 12s and their earthquake-causing jumps and all that stuff could be something of a difference.
Well, we're also seeing that the Packers are fighting for positioning in the NFC. I mean, the Seahawks are game up in the division, and the division. There's a lot of infighting in the NFC West, as we know it. We saw the Rams play the Bills this past weekend. That was a very, very spicy game.
Oh yeah, that was
very, very spicy. Game.
And that's the thing. It's like, had the Bills won that, then we're talking about 2-game lead.
Exactly, but
the razor thin margin.
And the Rams offense can be so explosive. They really kept up with them well. And the Packers are fighting. They're the 3rd best team in the NFC North right now. Yeah. And they're like 9-4. So that's what I'm saying. We're fighting a really good team that is still fighting for a really good position. They just added a guy, well, not just, but this offseason they added a guy named Josh Jacobs, who honestly, if you can compare, you talk about Saquon Barkley going from the Eagles to going from the Giants to the Eagles, or Derrick Henry going from the Titans to the
Ravens.
Ravens. It's the same sort of thing. He's really galvanized the offense, giving them some balance. Now, one thing I think the Seahawks need to look out for, and this could be a good thing for the Seahawks, this will be a good thing for the Seahawks, Jordan Love, the quarterback, has been a little bit risky with the ball. He's not. Look, Geno Smith has had just an interception woes at the season. He's not at that level, but that being said, this is an opportunistic Seahawks defense. We've seen picks in all the 4 games that they've won in a row. And I don't know. This is the type of game, and I think I've said this before. Actually, I said it before we started that this is like the Seahawks game of the year so far.
Sure. Now,
I've said that about the Falcons game, going on the road and doing that cross-country difficult, and they played very well. A win like this against a team like the Packers puts the Seahawks, on Sunday Night Football no less, into the national conversation of maybe not the best team in the NFC. I think the Lions are well above most others, and comparable to the Eagles, who are infighting as usual. And I love digging on the Eagles.
I knew you were going to take that shot.
I can't stand them. But no, a win like this at home would galvanize this team going forward, especially going into a game with Minnesota, the next best team.
Yeah.
And the NFC North. I mean, this is. I don't want to say a must win, but it's not a gotta have it. You want to have it.
Well, yeah, and that's a perfect point, Najee, to make. There is the idea that this isn't must win by definition, because you could you can in theory lose the next 2, then win the last 2, and still win the division.
Yeah, but
the math. But yes, exactly. Like,
these are measuring stick games,
without question. Yeah. Measuring stick games, and listen, if the Rams fall, right, and then you're talking about having that 2-game lead, or if you as long as you beat the Packers.
Sure.
And let's get away from that for a second, from the standpoint of not just when I say get away from it, I mean like just the X's and O's of the division, what it does for the psyche of this team.
Yeah.
There's oh my God, the energy at the VMAC right now is just on another level. Everybody, obviously doing their thing at practice and all that, but talk about energy and aura. Like there's a feeling there right now, and that's going to happen when you win 4 games in a row. Man, if you extend that to 5, which is
it's a big
incredible.
Deal. It's hard to win games in the NFL. And that being said,
it.
We talk about 4 games in a row. The Niners, we talked about how long it's been since the Seahawks got a win against the Niners. And the Cardinals are not quite where they want to be, and the Jets are, say what you will about the Jets. These are teams that, quote unquote, the Seahawks had to beat.
Yeah.
But they beat them.
Right.
And that's very important.
Yeah.
And that all just builds confidence for this matchup.
As we go into this matchup, interesting dynamic brewing at wide receiver.
Yeah.
Jackson Smith and Jigba has just been off the charts. Mike McDonald was talking about how he's been a competitor even before he got to Seattle, because he was making the joke that McDonald was coaching at Michigan. Obviously, JSN was at Ohio State. He's like, everybody said we did an amazing job on him, and he had 150 yards receiving.
Exactly. Yeah.
But my goodness, DK is still WR1 to play off that. But
look at the numbers, and I would suggest I would look at the numbers, and if you're a fantasy football player, coach, manager, player, coach, manager, all the above, exactly what I'm about to say. DK has almost been more like a decoy.
Yeah.
Taking up a lot of room. He's a big guy.
Yeah.
Guy that Seahawks love to have, but honestly, JSN has kind of filled into maybe a more of a young Tyler Lockett role.
Well, that's just it. And listen, Locke has still got it.
Locke has got it.
But the idea that JSN has emerged,
right,
and DK is still the guy that can do anything on a football field.
Right. You can throw it up to DK and he will just moss over people. Exactly.
It is amazing because DK attracts all that attention. JSN is saying, okay, keep me in single coverage. Watch what happens.
See what happens.
And suddenly you have this Seahawks receiving core that, like, the vision of that 23 draft comes into fruition with the way JSN's playing, which capitalizes on teams, focusing on DK and the attraction that DK requires from an opposing defense. And Lockett, listen, you look at a stat sheet and you're like, but listen, in that Arizona game, he was about a nanosecond away from a touchdown catch. He's
a threat.
He's still a threat.
He's someone that they can't forget to cover.
And the emergence of A.J. Barner at tight end, a rookie, right? And Noah Fant's going to be Noah Fant. Suddenly, we're not even talking about the run game right now, which found itself against Arizona. Suddenly, Geno Smith has all these weapons at his disposal. And if you're an opposing defense, and we know the Packers have a nice secondary, but like if you're an opposing defense, it's like, if you pick your poison, what do you do?
What do you do? Like I said before, you win football games by 1. play great defense.
Right.
The Seahawks have been doing that and run the ball. I sound like this the 1980s, but honestly, we saw what happened. Zach Charbonnet, went off in the last game and they won, and it was by
angry running.
Angry running. He's a big boy too.
Reminds me of Thomas Rawls.
There you go.
My buddy.
There you go, your boy Thomas Rawls, friend of the show, friend of
KOMO
also. Yeah, definitely. This is, and I had said before I hate to bring up these guys, but the Jacksonville Jaguars are just above the Seahawks in as far as rushing stats for the year.
Yeah,
that's kind of like, it's odd, but that's something that the Seahawks can work on, and we saw what happens if you run the ball last week.
Right.
It opens up the pass. Gino can still sling it. It protects the ball a little bit better, takes some time off the clock, and it keeps your defense rested. Another thing that keeps your defense rested is 3 and outs, and the Seahawks are one of the leaders in 3 and outs on defense, which is getting off the field, which is great. You do not want guys like Romeo Doubs and Jordan Love and Josh Jacobs and Christian Watkins to get going on the Packers side, because it has potential to be a strong offense.
Yeah, tricky game, no question.
It is a tricky game, and I'm happy it's at Lumen, but I think a win like this at home, we've talked about how winning at home has been a bit of a struggle for the Seahawks. Yeah. The last game at home was the Cardinals game, but the first Cardinals game, I definitely think that this is if the Seahawks can do this on Sunday Night Football at home, this is a big deal.
It's a statement.
It's a huge deal.
No question.
Yeah.
And I think that when you start getting the wins like we've seen over the last month at this point, which is amazing to think about, but when you start getting those wins, my goodness, you're talking about different guys stepping up in different situations. The Genos, the DKs of the world are always going to step up. But who's emerging? And it's JSN.
Right.
It's Coby Bryant. It's so many different guys that on this team. That AJ Barner we mentioned a moment ago. My goodness, some of the young guys on the offensive line that are getting, opportunities and things of that sort. It's a really big deal. And I want to bring this up to everybody really quick. I had the opportunity to talk to Coby Bryant about this, his emergence, where he kind of gets that mentality. Just a couple minutes here. I want to bring you what Coby Bryant had to say. Really cool stuff. A guy that has helped emerge in this win streak. What are you seeing out there? How much fun are you having with everything that's been going on?
I'm having enormous fun, honestly. Just keep making plays out there with the guys and just everyone believing in me and vice versa. And just all of us playing collectively as one and getting the job done. So.
That's just getting the job done undefeated since the bye week. I used that word, how fun is that last time, but how good does it feel when everything's clicking in that kind of way? Yeah,
absolutely. It's always better when you're winning. Things are a lot smoother. And just everyone is just having fun out there, like you said. That's the biggest thing. And like you said, everyone's safe, coming out victorious is the best thing.
No question about it. So you and I haven't had a chance to talk since we talked post-game in Arizona.
Right.
At that time, I didn't know that your pick 6 in that game literally caused an earthquake. Did you hear about this?
I heard about it, and I was excited about that. I guess the tribute was well-deserved during that. And it was a real situation for sure.
Oh, my God. That's the thing. You do the tribute, and then you have the same effect. How crazy is that?
Crazy. Meant to be. Yeah.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
For you personally, here we are, year 3, and how have you handled the journey? There's ups and downs and whatever.
Yeah.
How do you handle all of that to be at this point where you are now?
Just always giving, credit to God, just going to Him with things and my family and just staying level-headed. It's the biggest thing that, in life you're going to go through things and it doesn't define who you are. You create your own journey, down the path, and that's what I've been doing, just keeping my head down, working, and, never complain about the situation because I know the opportunity is always going to come, and it came, and I'm just continuously working. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And, when we talked when you were drafted, we were talking when you were named after Coby and everything like that. How fitting is that? You kind of have that mom mentality as far as, taking whatever comes your way and succeeding the way you are.
Absolutely. I've always had that mindset. It just suits me perfect, the name. So I've always had the mindset and, just continuously keeping that mindset for sure.
Yeah, it's not like, you're saying, oh, this ball's right here, mom mentality. But, how much is that, ingrained in your instinct, so to speak?
I would say it plays a major part, honestly. Just that the work ethic he had and just how he carried himself. I have the same trait, and I just take it on the field.
Absolutely. And the last couple of questions, I move on to the other thing I was talking to you about. Regarding, you talked about how everything's coming together.
Yeah.
How this defense especially has in recent weeks. Your part in that, and how great it is to have this kind of secondary room be the way that it is.
It's fun, man. I have fun, like I said, with all those guys. And just us being together, having that relationship that we have is special.
And you're living out a dream. I mean, this is something that you've wanted since you were a kid, and you're doing it on this stage and the plays you're making.
Absolutely.
Put that in perspective for something. It's easy to say it, right? But you're living it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's like I said, it's a blessing. Words can't describe it. But at the end of the day, you always work to be put in. You just got to keep going, keep getting better each week, and, continuously making those plays.
No question about it. If there's somebody, a young Seahawks fan, anybody out there that's watching do your thing, and, what's your message to them as far as how you were able to make this sort of thing happen?
Just keep working. It's the biggest thing, and, always keep God first, and, adversity doesn't define who you are. Just continuously keep working and just be the best version of yourself.
Coby Bryant, first of all,
great name.
Great name.
Great name.
Great guy.
Great guy.
I was able to be one of his first interviews when he was drafted in 22, and just a really cool guy. He remembered on the field when we talked after his pick 6 against Arizona.
Yep.
And I think that, by the way, for full disclosure, I did ask him, we did a separate segment after that interview, who's the GOAT, MJ, LeBron, or Kobe? You know the answer.
It has to be Kobe.
Yeah.
Of course.
He started to, because he's from the Cleveland area. So he started to be like, I'm from Cleveland. I'm like, you're not really, no offense to LeBron. I'm like, you're not really going to pick LeBron over your namesake, are you? And no.
Even despite his namesake, I mean, this is a separate argument for a separate podcast, but I mean, there's only 2 answers here, and one of them is not LeBron. And the other one isn't LeBron either, so.
No. Yeah. I'm partial to MJ, but listen, if you like MJ, him and Kobe they're both killers. They're similar. I don't have a problem with anybody picking one, but I'm partial to Jordan because of my age, I think. So
of course, and you're wearing Jordans right now.
I am wearing. We're not going to put the camera down there. I'm not going to try and put my foot up here. Yes, I got my Navy ones on. So
yes,
yeah, absolutely. So we appreciated Kobe's time from the VMAC. That was cool to bring you. Najee, I think it's about that time we do our predictions here.
Okay.
This is a tricky game in every sense of the word.
I've been going back and forth about
Me too.
About this game, and I've been looking at the Packers' last couple games, and they have been in close games, and they have lost close games, and they have won close games. Mm-hmm. Also, by the way, I don't want to act like I didn't forget. I did say that the Seahawks and the Cardinals could tie last week. Okay. Okay. Fine.
Hey, we're not perfect.
Well, I mean, they could. Ties do happen. I really think for the Seahawks to win, run the ball.
Especially if it's going like last week.
Especially if it's going like last week. There's 2 great running backs. It doesn't matter as far as who's healthy, who's not. Run the dang ball, first of all. Keeps the ball out of harm's way. I know the Packers have a great defense, have a great offense. They're coming here to Lumen Field, and that is the only reason why I'm picking Seahawks by 3. 27-24 Seahawks in the action green, all green.
What's your take on that before I get to my prediction?
I don't like it at all. No, I mean, I like the action green. I think you mentioned it before. You like it when it's blue, green, blue.
I don't have a problem with action green jersey with a blue helmet, blue pants to kind of offset the brightness, maybe.
I do like that it sets the Seahawks apart from the rest of the league.
That was what Pete Carroll used to say.
It's very aggressive. It's good for Sunday night, I think.
I don't have a problem with it. I mean,
it's not my favorite thing.
It probably wouldn't be my first, second, or third choice.
Sure.
But I don't have a huge problem with it.
I missed when the Seahawks did the all gray, the blue helmets and then the gray uniform and the gray pants. I love that. They only did that a couple times. But action green Sunday night, Seahawks by 3. Close game winning field goal. It's pandemonium and Pioneer Square. Fingers crossed.
I like it. In a good way. So I think that...
Well, it always is kind of, but...
I think that when you look at this, everything we've said, the Packers are very tough. And I think that you look at this game, it's kind of like a seminal moment from the standpoint that the Seahawks win. We're talking 5 in a row. I mean, 3 games to go. You're winning the NFC West at this point. Like you feel like it's a good bet that they go finish that thing off.
That'd be 9-5 on the year.
Yeah. And so it's the stakes are huge. And I feel like I've been saying that for a few weeks, but listen, Mike McDonald said on the other side of the bye week, like they had to treat every game like a playoff game. Lo and behold, they're undefeated in that kind of mindset.
Surprise.
Whether that translates to the actual playoffs, should the Seahawks make it, which we feel decent about at this point, that remains to be seen. Mm-hmm. But, the Packers are fighting for their playoff lives too.
They're
in the wild
fighting
card
for seeding, exactly, yeah.
So this is...
and they're a team you don't want to see in the playoffs.
No, especially if you had to go out there. Although if the Seahawks were to win the West, it'd be out this way. But
right.
I think that... I think it's gonna, like you. I think it's gonna be a fight to the finish.
Yeah.
I just don't know how you pick against the Seahawks right now, with the idea that, as they've gotten better since the bye week, it's not like they're slowing down, right? Like I think they've played better in each of the consecutive games, save for the special teams miscues against the Jets.
Yeah.
Which resulted in a guy getting released.
And things happen.
But Mike McDonald, not screwing around, right? And so that's the mindset of this team, we're going to figure this out. And even if it means something difficult, like letting a guy that you made a off-season signing in the offseason, right? So happy with how they're playing and how they're improving. That's the key part here. So
and I will say this. I think the Packers, they're a good team, and the record shows it. I think they may also be the recipient of a semi-soft schedule.
I don't have a problem with that. I think they're, like you said, I think they're good, but
their best win will be against the Texans back in October. They've beaten teams like the Jaguars, the Bears, the Dolphins, the Niners. None of these teams are really striking fear in my heart personally.
Sure.
The Cardinals, obviously, Rams, lost to the Vikings. They beat the Colts by 2, Titans. They did lose to the Eagles in the beginning of the year. So, they're a good team. However, I think this is the hardest test they'll have this year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Outside of the Lions game, which they lost.
Well, yeah, that was the Lions certainly, and that was a hell of a game to watch. But
right.
So I'm very similar to you in this, Naj. I'm going to say something like 24-20, 24-21. I like the Seahawks.
Right.
It's hard to pick against them right now, so I think they're going to win it by 4, 24-20. Fun game.
Right.
Night game, 5:20 kickoff. Live reports on KOMO News at 11.
What was your prediction at the beginning of the year for win total for the Seahawks?
We'd have to look back. I believe I said 10-7.
Now,
with peripheral chances of 11-6 or 9-8.
So
I think 10-7 is what I went with.
They're on that track at least.
Yeah, if you asked me after the Rams game, do I think they're going to get 10 wins? I might have.
After the Giants game, I think I would have been like,
But that's the thing; they're getting better when it matters.
Exactly.
And I think there's some real, true aspects to the idea that what Mike McDonald's saying, that these coaches are not just working together for the first time.
Right.
But McDonald's a first-time NFL head coach. Ryan Grubb's a first-time NFL coordinator, and so you want it to be clicking from day one. And maybe we had a little fool's gold given the opponents, at least at that point of the season, like the Broncos were just getting started with Bo Nix and all that.
But look at them now.
Look at them now. McDonald has kind of alluded to the idea that, hey, you know what? We are figuring that out now, and we have come together. And he was asked that question about the offense making it happen, and he's like, yeah, I'll talk about Ryan, but I'll talk about all the coaches. Like, we're cohesive. We're making it work now.
Right.
And it's I think it's only going to get better from here. And so often Mike has been asked about, especially defensively, it's kind of an uncanny occurrence that, okay, he takes over the Baltimore defense back when, right? And then they get 7 games in, it's kind of like mixed bag. And then they get Roquan Smith, and the Baltimore defense is like incredible from there on out. Same thing at the start of this season. Things are kind of, hit or miss. Then they get Ernest Jones, and the defense is lights out. I'm not saying that we're going to see the same exact result here that they got in Baltimore, but
right.
To what McDonald is saying about things coming together, there's past results with teams he's coached with.
Exactly.
Right? So I'm optimistic for this game. Now, are you asking me, are they going to win all 4? No, probably not, right?
Well, hold on.
But I think that I feel better about them winning it. 2 or 3 of them, certainly. I feel better about their playoff hopes.
If the Seahawks look good against the Packers, I feel certainly good against the Vikings.
Minnesota's by far the hardest.
Minnesota's the hardest.
At the Rams potentially playing for their playoff lives, depending on how things shake out.
Chicago that's a dub, I think.
It should be okay. Day after Christmas, though, travel east, that can always be an issue.
Right.
But
these are good problems to have.
I like where things are at this moment. And I'll say this. I think that when you look at it from the perspective of what this team has done, it's hard to say anything but the best times for the Seahawks in this Mike McDonald era are just starting and ahead of it.
As Cosmo Kramer says, here's to feeling good all the time.
Here's to feeling good all the time.
And that's what the Seahawks are going to feel like.
Well, don't take any of my fantasy advice, so I'm going to skip because I'm out of the playoffs in both leagues. Najee, do you want to give me any tips before we move on? We made our predictions.
I don't want to brag, but I guess I get to now. I am number 1.
Oh, I want you to win at this
first overall seed in the KOMO Sleeper League, which is has the craziest rules. We're talking like
I'm about to quit that league because I stink. But also, it was really tough with 14 teams.
We're talking about 14 teams. We're talking about 4 flex positions, no kicker, no defense.
Yeah.
I had to start a guy who got 0 points. Many people have started guys who've had 0 points, and somehow with my 9-4 record, I earned a first round bye.
Okay.
That is only because of my excellent drafting, and I almost don't have any good fantasy advice for you guys this week. But if you have Zach Charbonnet, I would suggest keeping him in the lineup.
Okay.
For sure.
Well, yeah. Even if K9, everything with that, it's just like even if K9's healthy the rest of the way, I think Charbonnet has carved himself out a role.
I would say even if K9 is healthy the rest of the way, I would say maybe give the ball to Charbonnet 50-50. I love when teams have like 2 good running backs.
Yeah.
That can just go. That can just pound. And a guy you can just spell like that, definitely.
Yeah.
Just run, baby, run.
How about your Giants 16-point underdogs to the Baltimore Ravens?
Yeah, I would
16.
I take the Ravens.
Yeah, I mean,
There's no. I mean,
it's some interesting betting.
I don't even
lines
know
this week.
who the Giants are anymore.
No, I hear you.
I've
I will
moved
say
into-
this: my best bet heading into this thing. I like the Bengals 5 over the Titans. That's probably, if I had to make a
safe.
guess. I mean, this is probably another thing you don't want to listen to me on. But if I had to make my best bet this weekend, I'd go with the Bengals.
I pride myself, and I think that's a good bet. And I took that in my Pick 6 league. But how about this? I pride myself on picking games that are difficult. And we talked about, Mike Tomlin actually said this, the battle for the Pennsylvania State Championship.
Okay.
Eagles,
That's gonna be a fun
Steelers.
game.
Shout out to Russell Wilson cooking
Hey, Russ.
still in
Russ,
Pittsburgh.
man, good for him.
Good for him.
I'm
know
happy for Russ. I know it didn't work out here at the end, but
there was a lot of situations in Denver, and he didn't get a fair shot. And I think a lot of people here in Seattle, at least in this newsroom, was like, now seeing him in a better light because he's cooking in Pittsburgh right now. Denver, it was not going to work out.
No,
in
and
Denver.
I think
there's no way.
I think that lends to what I've often ranted about on this show, that we talk about these rookie QBs that are kind of discarded because it didn't work in the first year and a half
Right.
or something. Just because you're picked first overall and it doesn't work out or whatever the number is doesn't mean you're not that good. Same with Russell. Doesn't mean he was a bad quarterback.
Right.
There's got to be a good fit there.
And he's making the Steelers defense look. I don't even think I've seen the number 44. I mean, this was last week.
The
2 weeks
Steelers
ago.
remind me of his Seahawks teams.
Yeah, honestly,
At least the way they're built.
He's slinging the ball very, very well. They're playing the Eagles, and they are. I don't think they're favored. They're not favored. I think there's a
No. Yeah, I don't think so either. I'm gonna look that up
They're
for you really
underdogs
quick.
right now, and I'm pretty sure it doesn't matter what the spread is. I'm picking the Steelers to win this game. They're on the road. The Eagles have a lot of things going on, and I feel like the Pittsburgh Steelers defense are going to exploit that. For some reason or another, we know the Eagles can't pass the ball.
Eagles favored by 5. I think that's a
Oh
healthy.
yeah, 100% take Pittsburgh.
That's you're taking Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
I'm taking
100%.
Cincy.
Yeah.
Packers favored by 3 here in town. That kind of
I took the Seahawks in my picks.
gives me a little hesitation. Sometimes these Vegas people somehow know stuff, but
I don't know. They don't know anything.
they don't.
They don't know.
Najee,
Nico.
we don't know everything, but we
know
the
most
Seahawks.
things.
Yeah, we're with the Seahawks all week. I was at their facility all week. We've both been there on the field with this team and getting the ins and outs, and that's why we like to bring you all of this knowledge. And we really thanks for the participation, whether it's in our rapid reaction right after the game,
Right.
whether it's this show during the week. We really appreciate all your participation, so certainly leave a comment. We'll probably try to reference it in future shows as we go forward.
Unless you're a Cardinals fan.
Unless
I'm
you're
kidding.
well, they probably got the most mentions of anybody for all the wrong reasons.
It's true.
But yeah, we love being able to bring you this unique perspective that we're there talking with the folks. You're going to be talking one-on-one with Coby today. We love bringing that to you. So thanks for checking us out. This is the KOMO Sports End Zone. I'm Niko Tamurian. He's Najee Moye. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.